Hello horror hounds, welcome back to my A to Z of horror. We're at E and a film that was part of a list of banned films in the UK in the 1980s, known as the video nasties. And it really would have been better served if it had been put on a list of video shitties. E is for Evilspeak. My A to Z of horror series is entirely inspired by Jambo Shango and Randy Mole's A to Z of horror series. As ever, I'm going to link in the description field below to their entry for E, which is the intriguing Sasquatch movie Exists. We are stuck with Evilspeak. The film stars Clint Howard as Stanley Coopersmith, a pupil at a military academy who is bullied and tormented continuously by his peers and essentially the staff when Coopersmith is put on punishment duty and made to clean out the school's basement. He discovers a hidden room behind a crumbling wall and relics of a satanic cult. With the help of the school computer, as computers were known in the 80s, to translate some of these black mass texts, he begins to enact the rituals. It's a revenge story. This is all, mind you, after members of the Spanish Inquisition stranding a 16th century Satanist by the name of Esteban on the shores of the New World. He's banished there with his disciples for their heretical beliefs. I'm pretty sure in real life the Spanish Inquisition would just torture and then burn him. But for the sake of the film, they decided to be a bit more relaxed about his avowed and clear Satanism, and they just transport them all to America instead. They even bring along the cult's accoutrements, leaving them with their ceremonial swords, books of black mass, and even pewter devil statues. You know, the lighter side of the Spanish Inquisition. I knew very little about this going in. I knew that a kid had found some satanic rituals, and with the aid of a computer in a 1980s sort of computer-fused way would enact his satanic revenge on the people tormenting him. And that's it. And that is pretty much the long and the short of it. There's no part of this plot that really comes out of the blue. But the entire film, more or less, is an exercise in what could have been rather than what we're presented with. Sadly, the film lacks much in the way of focus and drive and ambles along for interminable periods. It's the ultimate sin of any movie, let alone an exploitation horror movie. It's boring. The real problem here is the promise of the setup and the scenario isn't really fulfilled until quite literally the last 15 minutes of the movie. The entire film, even the fucking computer, is sitting around waiting for one ritual to be completed before everything goes all carry at the prom. So what we're left with just feels like we're watching a kid getting beaten down for 70 minutes with a bit of blood and a bit of nudity here and there until he finally snaps and does something. Now there's an argument to be made for building a character up and pushing them to breaking point until they finally snap. That is pretty much what happens in Carrie. It's just that by the time we get to that snapping point, the other stuff that's happened to get us there is interesting and engaging. Here, it's horrible and heart-wrenching to watch. I was honestly hoping for Coopersmith's descent into Satanism to be a lot more paced out, kind of like 976 Evil. He'd try a ritual, it would work on one person, he'd get more into it, and the more he got into it and the more revenge he took, obviously the more his own soul and personality is compromised. But the computer he's using to translate has Just the most insane kind of programming that will drip feed him information about the ritual, and it'll say, right, needs blood, and then there's blood, and he goes, well, no, human blood, you idiot. Well, you didn't specify human blood. How are we supposed to get to this point where all these dark satanic powers of revenge can be unleashed if you're not specific? An awful lot of the runtime of Evilspeak is an exercise in frustration, but I must give props to the lead, Clint Howard. Cooper Smith has got to be one of the most pitiful teenage characters ever committed to celluloid. Clint Howard makes him at turns repellent and incredibly sympathetic. It's a fascinatingly balanced performance. It's going to be a horrible thing to say, but at times you can understand why Cooper Smith is bullied. And at the same time, his bullies are so horrible, and you do genuinely empathise with him, that you're desperate to see him get some supernatural payback. But the real slog of watching Evilspeak is not the time that it takes to get to the point where he gets his revenge. It's that up until that point, we're sat with him, watching him being tortured, abused, tormented. It's not fun. Cooper Smith gets himself a puppy, a little runt of a litter that's not being fed properly by its mother and is essentially going to die. And Cooper Smith asks if he can look after him, and he takes the puppy and hides it away in the secret room that he's found in the basement of the school. And then the film goes into, as I say, this prolonged period of threat hovering over this runtish, adorable puppy, and with characters threatening to kill this dog to just have a dig at Cooper Smith. And that's the point where I felt, personally, Evilspeak can just fuck right off. At least John Wick had the good grace to kill the puppy right at the start, and then spent the rest of the film enacting out my righteous anger at those evil bastards righteously killing off anyone and anything that got in the way of Wick killing those puppy killers. Here it was just a gut-twisting, horrible, sick feeling where a caretaker would grab the puppy and twist its neck, threatening to snap the puppy's neck. Cooper Smith's bullies were threatening to find and kill the puppy, and it was just too much. Using this continued threat and then killing of a puppy to be the thing that finally drives Cooper Smith over the edge, it's inelegant, and it left a bad taste in my mouth. And essentially that's what happens, and he finally snaps, he fulfills the ritual, and the last 15 minutes of the movie is him hovering around with a ceremonial sword, slicing people's heads off, or controlling a pack of hogs to go around eating people. And I find myself asking, where's the plot? The military academy is built on the site of Esteban's Satanic church in the New World, to the point where he's the founder of the church on the military academy. There's a huge portrait of Esteban looking evil inside the church with a black robe and his evil magician's beard and the ceremonial sword glaring out. The portrait couldn't scream evil more if it tried. And so when the Reverend goes into the church and looks at the portrait of Esteban and then moves down into the basement, I think, oh, something's up here. And then when the Reverend shares knowing looks with the headmaster in control of the academy, I think, oh, okay, oh, something's going on here. They're allowing this torment of this Cooper Smith. He is their sacrificial figure in a larger sort of satanic ritual. The cult is still alive generations afterwards. The military academy is just a front. We're going to get a sort of Rosemary's Baby-like revelation that everyone is in on it, especially when on the open day they're talking to the wife of a congresswoman and all the influence there. Imagine a fully fledged satanic cult hiding behind the respectable veneer of a military academy, shaping the minds of its young wards future people of power and influence in the corridors of American government and business. No, none of that. And there's a theme of pigs even running through it. A part of Esteban's sort of satanic accoutrements, pewter pigs' heads with the horns, boars and the like. There's the theme of the boars running through it, and still on the grounds of the military academy they're raising hogs, and the hogs are influenced by the Black Mass texts and run amok and eat people. So why do they still keep hogs on the grounds? Why are they still raising them? It's because it's important to the cult. No, it's all just a massive coincidence. I did find myself wondering about halfway through, idly, which is never a good sign that the movie is capturing me, about other horror films set in military academies. I came up with Child's Play 3 and Damien Omen 2. Are there any other horror films set in military academies that you can think of? Let me know in the comments down below. As a quick aside, whilst I remember it, part of the translation that the computer does is the ingredients required for a black mass. Tons of stuff, all of which happen to be more or less on the shelves of this room that Cooper Smith has discovered. But one of the ingredients is unholy water. And I said to my partner when that came up on the screen, said, "Unholy water, what's that?" She said, "Well, not holy water, so water then." All of this notwithstanding, I know Evilspeak has its fans. I know it's a cult favourite. And the very real life horrors of bullying and abuse may help explain why it's found a place in the hearts of many horror fans. If it speaks to you and offers you an outlet for the revenge fantasies that we've all nursed from time to time over the years, then I'm not going to decry you at all for liking this movie. I'm keenly aware that horror films can act as a very personal kind of therapy for a lot of us. In some way, shape or form, we were all a little or a lot like Cooper Smith in our time at school, the weird ones who liked the scary stuff. Some of us had friends who we could share our passion and enjoyment for horror movies with. Others, I'm sure, found some kind of solace in the screen among characters who understood them as an exercise in watching this character being beaten and abused and bullied. It's a little too close to the knuckle for me. It's a little too close and protracted to the real world horrors that an awful lot of us go into horror movies to escape from, to be, for me, ultimately enjoyable. Join me next time, please, for F. I used this series A to Z as an excuse to finally get round to watching it. I'm so glad I did. As ever, I'll leave a little visual clue as to what the next entry is going to be about. So please join me next time when we find out that F is for